I'm Lori Hahn, Communications Coordinator with the Guilford Public Schools. We're here today to talk about the 2013-2014 education budget. The referendum on the budget will be on April 9th, Tuesday, and we want to give you an opportunity to learn about the goals for the budget and the specific areas that are going to impact the 2013-14 budget. So I'd like to introduce our panel that are here with us today. We have our Board of Education member, Susan Renner, our Board of Ed Chair, Bill Bloss, Superintendent of Schools, Paul Freeman, and Associate Superintendent of Schools, Ann Keene. We are also going to provide you with an overview of the bond package that is also going to be proposed on the referendum by the Board of Education. Our first question, what we'd like to be able to do is provide you with an overview of the budget process and the budget in general. It's important for people to understand the process that the Board of Education goes through in developing this budget and the administration, because it's long, it's detailed, it involves a lot of different people, a lot of stakeholders. So I'm going to pose this question to both Mr. Bloss and Dr. Freeman. Can you explain to us what you do go through to put this budget together?
Yeah, we've learned a few things, I think, in the budget preparation process over the past few years. We all understand what a big responsibility it is. I think we take seriously that we have been entrusted with the public's assets and the public's taxes and trying to fashion a functioning, a good education system. So we've done a few things, I think, that have proved to work very, very well. One is we start early. We start very early. We're barely into our fiscal year and we're already starting to craft next year's budget. But we do pay attention to what's happened in the current fiscal year in developing the numbers. But second, we start to solicit public input very, very early. I think this year it was in October, really before the administration even started putting together budget numbers. We asked the public, look, what do you think is important? What do you think the priorities ought to be? The third is we work with the administrators, the principals, the special services director, the others, in terms of what their priorities are. We don't always include them in the budget, unfortunately, for them, but we're trying to balance all of the various priorities. And then I think the other thing that we do that we should all be very proud of as a community is the way we work with the Board of Finance collaboratively through the entire process. You know, there's some districts that have a very confrontational relationship with the other town boards. We actually get to a better place financially by not engaging in combat with the Board of Finance, but instead the Board of Finance saying to us, look, these are what we think the community's priorities are, this is what the community can afford, we'd like you to reassess something. And indeed that's what happened here. This year, in our last meeting with the Board of Finance, they said, look, you know, we'd like you to take a harder look at some of this, and we did, and we actually did make some substantial reductions. So we think it's a very open process. We think it's a very honest process. The numbers are all up on our website, and people have commented and come to the public hearings. And indeed, the comments at the public hearings were not, we think that there's tremendous savings that you can realize in this, but really the comments were, we'd like additional services. So I thought that was, we've done, I think, the best we can, but the process is really an open process and a process that will consider anything and answer any question.
Mr. Bloss covered most of the bases. And the schools, what we do is we begin working very early in the school year with principals, identifying needs at their school level, talking with staff members at the school level, bringing those needs, and then at the district level we combine all of those and bring that together into the school administrative budget that then goes to the Board of Education. What's important for us as we begin working at that level is we begin with what's at the core of our mission. We start by thinking about our vision and thinking about our mission, which are around instruction. It's about instruction that invites effort. It's about encouraging every child to reach excellence. We look at our goals for the year. This year, as we began pulling our budget together, we very specifically looked at the Board of Education's goals for this school year. There are only 3. One of our goals is clearly that every child will experience rigor every day in every class. That means academic challenge that happens in the classroom. One focuses on a substantial change that we are embarking on. Dr. Keene will talk about it further, but we need to make sure that our curricula and our instruction and our assessments are aligned with the Common Core state standards. A new set of national standards that we in Guilford are going to be responsible to teach to. And our third goal is that we need to provide physically and emotionally safe schools for our children, places where they can come and feel comfortable and feel safe. Starting from those goals, we identify our priorities and we put together a budget that will move this district forward. We're not standing still, we are moving forward, and we need to prioritize decisions and place resources in such a way that we're going to move forward. That's the budget that we then bring to the Board of Education, and then it becomes this much broader community conversation. The Board of Ed meets with principals, they meet with district leaders, we bring the community in hearings, we bring the Board of Finance in very early in the process,
Right.
and it begins this very open dialogue that we hope we continue with this show and that people will participate in through GCTV and through our website.
Terrific, thank you. There are three main budget priorities, and one of them is special education, and specifically how you're going to meet more of the needs of special education students in district. Can you talk about how this budget is going to address this?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thank you for asking the question. There are three areas. Each time that I've talked about this budget, I've tried to continue to reiterate that there are three main areas of focus. One is to prepare for and to continue to implement those Common Core state standards that I just mentioned. One is to meet well the mandates that have changed at the state level, particularly this year around professional development for teachers and around evaluation for both teachers and principals. And one is around special education. More than a year ago, this Board of Education commissioned a study of our special education services here in Guilford. The results of that study came back and told us a number of things. First, it told us that the community recognizes that we care for their children and that special education teachers in this district work very hard to support the students. But one of the other findings that was really glaring is that we're not supporting enough of our students here at home in Guilford. In every school district, there are certain students who have special needs, and to meet some of those needs, you sometimes have to move the students to a specialized facility, a different school that can work with different sets of needs. We recognize that we're letting too many of our Guilford students go to those specialized facilities. This year, we want to really focus on building our local capacity to keep more of those special education students at home here in Guilford, so that we're educating them in their community schools with their friends and peers and doing it here in Guilford. We need to do that for a couple of reasons. First, and most importantly, because I believe we can do it better, and I believe it's the right thing to do. We need to keep those children here in Guilford. They're Guilford students. But secondly, we can recognize efficiencies by doing that. By keeping those students in their home schools, we can actually reduce a significant line in our budget, which is tuition spending, the tuitions we pay to those specialized facilities. We think that we can recognize efficiencies by keeping those students home and, in fact, do better. And one of the most exciting moments in one of those public hearings was listening to a parent of a special education child who this year is being educated at home, is in a sort of a specialized program that we have developed. The parent and the child are thrilled to have the opportunity to stay here. So we're getting recognition from the parents who want those kids to be here, and we're going to recognize efficiencies by doing so as well. That is a significant priority in this year's budget.
That's great, thank you. And another priority that you just identified is the new evaluation system that is going to affect both teachers and principals. How specifically does the budget play into that? How does the budget have to be addressed?
Well, this year the state of Connecticut has passed legislation that expects more of us as a school district in how we provide continuing development, professional development for teachers in the system. Additionally, it has set a higher expectation for the processes and the ways in which we supervise and evaluate all of the teachers in our system, some 300 employees, and principals, another 7 employees in the system. The state has much more stringent requirements for what those processes look like, There's much less latitude for a local school district like Guilford to make independent decisions about how we will do that. And it's labor intensive to be able to conduct those evaluations in a way that both meets the state requirements and continues to be something that we think will continue to forward our development. We want the evaluation system to feed back into making the teachers better teachers. We want it to be something that will help all of us grow and become better and more effective in the classroom with every one of our students. To do that in a way that's effective, we need to have monies in this budget that will provide the software and the data collection processes that we will need. We need monies that will provide training both for the teachers who will be going through the new system and for the administrators, the evaluators who will be conducting that new system. And most importantly, we need to look at our administrative capacity. This budget includes the increase of 2 instructional coaches, professionals who help teachers to develop every day in their classrooms to help with that professional development side. And it includes an additional part-time administrator because we need the administrative staff to conduct the evaluations properly. If we don't staff it well, we're not going to be able to do it well. So there is impact in the budget because of those new requirements at the state level and the expectation from us locally that we're not just going to comply, we're actually going to do them well and make sure that they help us to be a better, stronger teaching system.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Mrs. Renner. There is going to be a bond referendum that is generated from the Board of Education. It's in the amount of $1,623,677. It's going to address facility and technology upgrades and also health and safety items. Could you give us a little bit more detail about what the referendum will include and why it's important?
Certainly. There are so many exciting initiatives in this budget that we'll see inside the classrooms and inside the schools, but we can't lose sight of our responsibility to take care of those buildings. The great news about our schools is that, except for the high school, which is about to be replaced, the school buildings are structurally sound and their capacities are adequate to meet our needs into the foreseeable future. So as long as we take care of the buildings, modernize them when appropriate, and maintain them, we'll be all set with our buildings. The fact is that the buildings are old. Our newest building is Baldwin. It's over 40 years old. So the buildings have needs. In our operating budget, it's been very important to our board to make sure that we can bring the level of spending for the sort of routine, replacing the carpets, the painting, the repairs, that kind of thing, to bring that up to an adequate level. And we believe we've accomplished that with this year's budget. But outside of the operating budget, we also have additional capital needs, projects that go beyond the scope of the annual budget and will benefit us for years to come. So these items go into what we refer to as the bond question. It's capital projects that we plan to pay for over the period of time during which the town will benefit from these projects, financed by a municipal bond.
Right.
So the total is approximately $1,623,000, as you said.
Right.
And I see that breaking down into 3 basic areas to me. There's one significant project included in that amount, and it's the replacement of the exterior doors and windows at Cox Elementary School. This is similar to the project that we completed this past summer at Melissa Jones. A little less involved because Melissa Jones included classroom renovations. This is the windows and doors at Cox, and I understand they're original to the school. So there's single pane windows, obviously there are comfort issues, and more importantly, energy efficiency issues. Our plan is to replace all of those. That figure was derived from engineering and architectural work that's already been done. Now this is something else that we've been trying to do, is to do the engineering work in one phase, and then we know exactly what our amount should be when we go to do the actual project. So that's the largest component, and that's $983,000. Then there are 7 individual projects at various schools throughout town, and I'll go through what they are. At Adams, we're going to replace the musical instrument storage area. And also we're going to be upgrading cabling for wireless networks at Adams, technology. Same thing at Baldwin, updating the cabling. And also at Baldwin, there's a long sidewalk that goes from the main road all the way down to the school. It needs to be, it's not safe. It needs to be replaced, removed, replaced. Then at Lakes, we're going to replace the phone and paging system. And then back to something I mentioned before about designing the engineering work coming before the project. We have plans to work on designs for various improvements at Adams. This will be probably windows, doors, and classrooms. And similarly, district-wide, all kinds of projects, an amount of $50,000 based on the facilities assessment that's being done right now. So that's the second group of the included in the total. And then the third item is security. It's something which is, you know, very close to all of our hearts after the tragic events in Newtown last year. And I'd like to ask Dr. Freeman to explain what's involved in that, because he's done so much in terms of, you know, community discussion about what's needed, working with the police, all that.
Yeah, we have been in a lot of conversations, both at the state level. We've attended informational opportunities at the state level. We've worked with national experts on security. I think more important to that have been the conversations that we've had here locally. We did have a public forum in December where we asked the community to come in and share their concerns and suggestions. And we've worked very closely with the town and with our local police department to talk about how to better provide security, to provide safety at the schools. What we have done is we have visited all of our schools, and we've paid particularly close attention to the entrances. We want to look at the entrances to our schools, and we want to make sure that the best that we can provide control and security at those areas. So there is an item in this bond request for $250,000, which would allow us to make modifications to the front entrances at a number of our schools. That won't address all of the schools. The high school is being addressed in the new design. Some of the schools allow us to make fairly easily achieved changes, and some of the schools will probably require more work and may be pushed forward into another budget year. But the attempt is to make the school entrances more visible, more controllable, and more securable. And so we've looked at each of the entrances. There's a different solution for each of those entrances, and we hope to make improvements at each of those entrances with this money that's included in this bond request.
Great, thank you. Dr. Keene, we're going to try to summarize the Common Core state standards very, very briefly, and we appreciate your effort in doing that. Since 2011, the district has been involved in making this transition, and in 2013-14, we will fully implement the Common Core state standards. Can you give us an overview of the Common Core state standards and what's involved in this implementation process, and again, how this will impact the budget?
Sure. The Common Core state standards were really developed, it was a state-driven effort with the Council of Chief State School Officers and the National Governors Association in 2009. And they are a set of common academic standards in literacy, including literacy in social studies, science, and technical subjects, and also in mathematics. And they're common learning standards for students across states. And they're also aligned with national standards and international standards. So even though they aren't a national curriculum, the architects of the standards took the best of all 50 states and really looked at them carefully, beefed them up, looked at international standards, and pulled these things together. And to date, 46 states have adopted them, Connecticut being one. So we started last year by really trying to figure out, what do the standards mean, how do we understand them deeply, and making sure that all staff had access to them. This year we have ramped up our efforts considerably by really aligning our curricula, our current documents, looking at the shifts in instruction, because it is very different. There is a lot more writing, especially writing research, writing opinion and argument using evidence from text. There's a lot more work with nonfiction reading and writing, because we believe for students to be college and career ready that they're going to have to start at a very young age really interacting with that kind of instruction. So next year is the implementation year. That is when we expect we will have a new math curriculum, which is currently being written and really tested right now. Our language arts will be ready to go, because we've been working on that one for about 3 years already. And this summer we will really take a good hard look at our social studies and science and world language is actually on the docket as well. So not only is this an important initiative for instruction in all subject areas, even some of the non-academic areas are working very, very hard to align to the Common Core state standards, like physical education just released their new national standards aligned to the Common Core. So we're all working on this, and it becomes easier because we can go across states, we share resources, and our budget for next year will be addressing the implementation of the Common Core. Some of the things that we are doing, and we are purchasing some model curriculum units so that teachers have models to actually write their own units from. These are very rich, they're very complex, so that we have the very best teaching and learning materials in front of our students. Another thing is we're going to be developing and using instructional videos more, because in order to make the shift to this new, more rigorous thinking curriculum, teachers really need to see what it looks like in the classroom. They need to be able to analyze teacher moves and to make suggestions and internalize it so that they know what it looks like, so that they can improve their practice as well. We have money in this budget for some assessments, so that we will have some carefully designed assessments that are aligned to the Common Core. We have a math specialist position this year. We will continue with the math specialist who is working on our curriculum alignment, as well as in working on the instructional shifts in our elementary schools and at Baldwin. And then we'll have some time in the summer for the curriculum work that I mentioned earlier. But one of the most important things that I believe that will help us support teachers in the implementation of the Common Core state standards are our instructional coaches that we have in literacy. We have 4 instructional coaches at the elementary schools in literacy. They've been working for a couple of years with individual teachers or with grade level groups of teachers. They model for teachers, they provide feedback, they help plan, and so they are really instrumental about leading the learning, and it's ongoing on a daily basis. Every single day they're working with staff, and that is so, so important. We're going to expand that initiative next year in this budget, we hope, to Baldwin Middle School, so that 5th and 6th grade teachers will all have the support of a coach, and they won't be accountable individually, teachers, there will be a co-accountability, so that there's someone else that is just as responsible as I am for the achievement of the students in my classroom. And that's really, really important in order to be successful, because this is not something that we can do in isolation. It has to be a collaborative effort. So that's how the budget is going to support the Common Core state standards. We really believe that professional development is critical to the success of this initiative. We want to be first and foremost as far as being responsive to the needs of our children. We also want to make sure that we are pushing them in very, very positive ways to be good thinkers, good problem solvers, good readers and writers, and knowing that they have an opportunity here that they might not have anyplace else. And so we really have to capitalize that. And this community, we believe, is a learning community. It's always supported education, it supports our library, it supports the arts, and we're very, very fortunate to have that kind of opportunity, and we certainly want to take advantage of that for our children, so that all children, have an opportunity to be just the very best that they can possibly be.
Sounds terrific. Mr. Bloss, Guilford students, as Dr. Keene just mentioned, we all want our students to be the best they can be, and so many of them are wonderful. Our students perform at such high levels on academic tests. We outperform the state in many areas. We outperform our DERG in so many areas, and yet our budgets and our spending, our tax dollars are not as high as comparable towns. How do you think we do this?
Well,
you must have that magic answer.
No, it's obviously the Board of Education. There's 100 reasons. Parents are and parental support and parental involvement is obviously a huge part of it. Every year we are asked, well, when are we going to start doing or considering fees for services and extracurriculars and so forth? And every year, I think I'm pretty convinced that in the long term, that is a losing proposition. That is asking parents to really do more than they already do, and is going to lead to a long-term decline in revenues to the town. But we try to make decisions on the Board of Education based on data. That we've made a real commitment to doing that, and just not throwing money at something because we think it seems like it might work, but finding out what's worked in other districts, what's worked in other states. I think this is really one of the most exciting budgets I've been involved in here, because even though the requested increase is less than 3%, and the requested increase last year, with the 2 years put together, really not much different from the rate of inflation when you get right down to it. But nonetheless, it is a moving forward budget, as Dr. Freeman said. It is not we're not talking about we need a 3% or a 2.9% increase just to cover health insurance increases. We've at least seemed to have gotten a handle on that, thanks to some good changes in our collective bargaining agreements, and also some fairly clever provisions to encourage people to opt out of the program under certain circumstances. So we're not talking about health insurance right now. We're talking about education, and that's terrific. And now, even up to this point, when you look at the data, the Connecticut Coalition for Achievement now says our high school is 11th in the state. 11th in the state in terms of performance on the standardized tests. And we are ahead of some really, and I know Dr. King doesn't like me to talk about other districts and so forth, but we're ahead of some really high achieving districts. We're ahead of some districts that have a lot more spending on education than we do. Our two middle schools are 17th and 19th in the state. Now, obviously, they're middle schools, so they're comparatively about the same as the high school. Far in excess of where if you were just measuring performance, expected performance based on socioeconomic data, the performance is substantially higher than what the data would otherwise suggest. U.S. News and World Report gave us, again, the high school a silver medal, and I think the 800th in the United States, the entire United States. But the flip side of that is at what cost? Now, we all know, we all pay taxes, we all know education is expensive, so are lots of things. I'd like to argue, I think, that the local tax dollars that we spend on education, out of all of the taxes we pay, we probably get a better return on than any other single tax dollar that we spend. Why? Because it's either going to do one of two things. It's either going to educate your children, or it's going to make your community a more desirable, better place to live, keep your property values up, and just putting aside that it's better as a community. Putting aside that. But where are we on that? Well, we're 84th in the state in terms of per student spending. If we were going to be average for state spending, you'd have to add $1.5 million to this budget, and last year's budget, and the budget before that. So we've really saved tremendous amounts of money. Our per capita tax levy is 46th in the state, even though our per capita income is 20th in the state. So we are substantially ahead of many, many very excellent districts in terms of efficiency. I guess that's the word you used, Dr. Freeman, that we have, and it's not an accident. It's because the administration has been careful and has tried to recommend programs that are not the fad, the educational fad of the day. We talk about that a lot on the board, that, is this something that there's data that proves that this is going to work, or is this just what somebody came up with at some seminar last year? And I think the administration has been very, very responsive in that respect. So we think this is an exciting budget, and it's a responsible budget, one that was developed very thoughtfully, very carefully, with data, with evidence, and we think it very much deserves the support of the Guilford voters.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching, and we encourage you to take a look at the budget. Everyone's talked about it here today. We hope we've given you an overview, but it's been just that, an overview. So we would encourage you to take a closer look. The budget's available on our website. And if you have any further questions, our Board of Education members' contact information is on our website. They'd welcome your questions if you have any. Again, as a reminder, the town annual meeting is on April 2nd. That's a Tuesday. And the following Tuesday, April 9th, will be the town referendum on the budget. We thank you for watching.